Across the Board with Ian the Colonel here on hawkradio.org and acrosstheboardradio.com. Again, we try to bring you the best bands in the world. And, there's a great groundswell of a sound coming out. Started years ago out of the blues and that sort of thing. And then you had bands almost like the Strokes, and then moving into the White Stripes and the Black Keys and people like that. They're really just stripped down rock.
Right.
That is just good and soulful and just raw.
It's something that's been missing from the music scene for a few.
Absolutely, man. And one of the forerunners of that movement has got to be a band. It was a band called Black Diamond Heavies. And singer and organist from Black Diamond Heavies, Reverend Jim Legg, John Wesley, is with us right now. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thanks for being here. Big fans, like we said. Now, what's, I think, unique about your band is so many have come out now, like we said, White Stripes and everything. We have a guitarist and a drummer, or Black Keys, who you have a relationship with, guitarist, drummer, that kind of thing. You guys had an organ, after the guitarist left. So talk about how you were able to progress with your sound and be successful with an organ and drums from there.
Okay, well, I will say though, I think what paved the way, I've got to do that. I got to be a champion for this band.
Okay.
The Dex Romweber duo,
Okay.
and then the Immortal Lee County Killers. Those two bands were guitar, drums before the White Stripes,
Yep.
before the Black Keys.
Absolutely.
Good call.
And yeah, and they kind of paved the way. The White Stripes made it very commercial, in a good way, and then the Black Keys came along. I was fortunate enough the last year that the Immortal Lee County Killers were together. They asked me to play keyboards in their band,
Right.
which was an honor. But back to your question, what made us different? I think is we're two-piece, but not quite. I mean, I think we've got a lot more sound on stage just because we're able to give the melodies of the Fender Rhodes and
Right.
the bass lines of a bass keyboard and the drums. So we're a
Mhm.
two-piece, but much live, a much bigger sound.
What do you think is missing, as we alluded to earlier? What do you think has been missing from the rock scene these years?
I think truth, man. I think that's what's been missing. It's
Yeah.
Good call.
when I go see a band, I want to believe it, and I want to believe that they believe it on stage. I want, make me, and I'm a believer. I'm easy to convince, But there's loads of pretense. It's loads of Broadway, if you will, and
Okay.
just honesty. I think is what's been missing from rock and roll.
That's a good way to put it, too. I've never heard it said quite so eloquently, that make the band you want to know that the band believes in their own music. That's
Yeah.
a really good point. And I think about that now, and that's what we love in bands like yours and the bands that we do love. And the bands that we don't love, you can tell that they're just, commercial and that kind of thing.
Exactly. When I see a show, man, I want to see a band performing in total abandon. Like there's nothing else they can do. They do that because it's all they can do.
I like that. I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've never seen you guys live. I've seen videos of you guys live, and it just looks like raucous. I don't know is the word that I would use to describe it. It looks amazing, and would just love to see you guys at some point. But let's talk about moving on from Black Diamond Heavies into your solo album. This came out a couple of years ago now. Solitary Pleasure. Worked with Jim Diamond, who actually produced the first two White Stripes albums. But talk about going from Lee County Killers to Black Diamond Heavies to Solitary Pleasure as your own solo gig.
Right. Okay. Well, so Immortal Lee County Killers, I really had no creative input other than, obviously I was playing my own parts, but that was it. I was playing in someone's band, and I love that band so much. They were a big influence on me. Then moving on to Black Diamond Heavies, I was a songwriter or whatever in that band, and to the solo thing, the Black Diamond Heavies, we'd been on the road for, Christ, 8 years, and decided to just step back a little bit. Van Campbell, the drummer, got married, and his priorities had changed a little bit.
Sure.
So we were going to take a little break from that, and but I've got nothing, so I want to stay on the road. So I put out another record, same kind of material, you know, and I tried to employ some different techniques. I grew up playing the acoustic piano, so on the James Legg record, rather than using the Fender Rhodes as a main tool, I used acoustic piano a lot more on that record, and tried to showcase a little bit of a different style, you know.
And talk about the influence that the area where the album was recorded, and it was recorded in the Murfreesboro, Tennessee area, just outside of Nashville. I'm familiar with that area, but talk about the legacy of the Nashville area has to do with how that influences your album as well.
Well, you know, man, Nashville today means very little to me, but Tennessee as a whole is got a, you know, we are. You'd be hard pressed to find a state that has more music history than Tennessee. Maybe Louisiana, you know, or Chicago, possibly, or New York, you know. But Tennessee's got a pretty broad spectrum of music history, and I'm from Texas originally, but I've lived in Tennessee for a long time, and that place where we did the James Legg record, Grand Palace. It's the oldest standing building in Murfreesboro. It was a church. It was a hospital during the Civil War.
Whoa.
There's bullet holes in the wall. It was a speakeasy during Prohibition. Like,
wow.
In the live room where we actually tracked, there's bullet holes in the wall, and
Crazy.
yeah, so there's some history, and there's actually no heating or air conditioning.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've worked there in the summertime with no air conditioning, and I've worked there. This particular record we made in the wintertime with no heat, so it's freezing cold. It's horrible conditions, but you know, through adversity comes diamond sometimes. So I was very happy with what we got. I felt like it worked out well, and as far as recording in Tennessee, man, you know, I'm playing Southern music. I listen to music from all over the world, but to go back to the honesty thing, you know, I'm going to play where I come from, and so I feel like we got something good there.
Absolutely, from what we've heard, and so many great artists in the Nashville area. And you talked about Louisiana. You know, Tab Benoit was on the show recently, friend of the show. Patrick Sweeney from there in Nashville was just on the show. Another great player from down there as well.
Yeah.
Now, when you're talking about that adversity, the hardships environmentally, like literally you were freezing or you were hot in the studio, how did that affect the recording sessions? Were you then under pressure, comfort-wise, to get it done in one or two takes, or did you still take your time and, you know, play through and play multiple tracks for layering? How did that work when they're recording in the studio?
Well, I mean, normally when I track, we try to get live as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
We go for live takes as much as possible because I don't like layering. I mean, it's necessary if you're, you know, doing horns or something like this, but as far as overdubs, we try to keep that to a very minimum,
right?
Because you lose the soul of the thing,
right?
And yes, the discomfort. I think the discomfort. I think adds to the thing. I mean, it should be a birth. I think it shouldn't. I've been to studios when I lived in Nashville for years, and I went to many studios, and they're so so clean and so perfect that it's just sterile, and it's so hard to get any kind of soul out of. You know, and it shouldn't be that way. That's not the kind of. I don't want to say it shouldn't be that way. That's not the record I want to listen to.
Got it. Okay.
And at the end of the day, I'm trying to make a record that I like. So, you know, I appreciate if people like it. I appreciate that very much. But at the end of the day, I've got to like it, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah, because you don't want to get tired of playing the material. I've heard of a lot of bands that don't play their hit songs anymore live because they're like, oh, we're sick of the song, or I don't feel that song anymore. It's not the place where I am now, and that sucks for everybody that paid to watch them play, you know. But
exactly.
Yeah. Now, I've worked in a recording studio and recorded guitars and drums and bass and vocals and all of those things, and know that some of those recording techniques and all of that. But I've never worked with recording an organ live. How does that work? I mean, when you're recording a guitar, you put a microphone up against an amp, or you have a room mic, something like that. But how does that work when you're actually? What are you looking for when you're looking for the tone of the organ?
Well, when I record, I'm using one of three things. I haven't branched out. My mind has not evolved. I'm using one of three things. I'm using a Fender Rhodes electric piano, or a Hammond B3, or an acoustic piano.
Okay.
And all of those, there's many ways. I like a nice room sound. So normally we will mic something up close. The organ, like you were asking about. Okay, so if I'm using a B3, I'm running through a Leslie. So we will have that Leslie cabinet mic'd up close, but also normally I'm recording in a big room, and we'll mic different places in the room.
Right. Okay.
And try and get the most ambient sound that we can find, and still scream and pierce through.
Especially in the old church, I would imagine that had a pretty cool, just organic sound to that, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's built for sound. So,
in your opinion, when you're looking to work with people, when you're trying to collaborate with people, or finding other people to jam with, whether it's for inspiration or you're just playing with them on stage, what do you look for? What are the qualities you look for in fellow musicians?
Well, that's multifaceted, man.
So are we.
Obviously, the first thing I want to know is that they can play their instrument, but it's a healthy mix between I want to know that they're into what I'm doing, but also that they can complement in a way that, maybe somebody who's not necessarily, maybe doesn't own the same records I own. You know what I mean? Like, that we can we're compatible in a organic way, but we don't own the same records.
They bring
somebody
something
that can
new.
add something that I can't add.
Okay, I like that. So then, ideally, who would be someone you'd want to work with that you haven't worked with yet?
Oh, Christ. I'd really like to jam with Nick Cave.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah, I did a couple shows with him a couple years ago. Really enjoyed that, and I'm a big fan of everything he's done.
Right.
Iggy Pop, and actually, he and I, we're email buddies. I keep in touch with him, but I keep trying to pitch to him that to let me be his backup band for his next solo thing. But
I can get that. That sounds cool, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I mean, I don't know, man. There's not. I try not to get starry-eyed,
Right.
Keep yourself grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many people that aren't necessarily worldwide famous who are incredible musicians. In fact, some of the best.
Right.
Exactly. I'm throwing out two famous names, man, but there's a multitude of people that nobody knows that I would love to work with.
Who are just incredible. Yeah, absolutely. Now, we talked about Solitary Pleasure that came out in 2011 on Alive Records, and Painkillers came out last year in 2012, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, also was James Legg. And so tell us a little bit about, that album. What can we expect, going forward? I mean, that's 2 albums in 2 years. Now that it's 2013, do we have another album coming out or a tour? What are we looking at?
Yeah. There's probably 2 records coming out this year, man.
Wow, good.
Overachiever.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get, I don't want to spill the beans, but Black Diamond Heavies haven't done a record in a few years, and we haven't done a show even in more than a year. But it looks like that's the next thing. We're going to go into the studio.
Nice.
We're getting together in February, and so probably a Black Diamond Heavies record. I've got a Labor of Love project I want to do as James Legg. I'm a Nina Simone fanatic,
Okay.
and just for my own pleasure, I would like to do a Nina Simone cover record as James Legg. But so that's the plan. But we'll see how it all shakes out.
Looking forward to that then.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We've got good music out there, and then 2 more coming up. I'm really stoked to hear about that then. Now, we talked about this off the air, kind of our signature question here. If you knew you only had time in your life to listen to one more song, however much time that is, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, what would that song? It can be yours or anybody else's, and you can play it or listen to it.
Man, that's a tough call, man. How do you pick one song?
It's your answer, man. So no rules on this one.
All right, well, I'll tell you what I'd pick. I'd pick Blue and Green by Miles Davis.
Good call.
Nice.
Oh man, can't go wrong with Miles.
No, that one cuts me to my core.
Nice.
John Coltrane solo. The first 5 seconds of John Coltrane solo on Blue and Green just reduces me to nothing. I like that one.
Yeah, and they just, man, there aren't many albums like that anymore. You don't have
No.
many musicians. I mean, Miles Davis, as a person, they say he was quite awful, but as a musician, you just legendary. One of the greatest of all time. And you don't. Oh God, good call.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great album.
Well, let me ask you this then: if you could hand down a, because you like a lot of old souls as well, if you could hand down to younger musicians, or if you had kids or something like that, sort of a time capsule of what music they should listen to, or what you want them to know about music. If they said, "Hey, Dad," or James Legg or John or whatever, what does music sound like, or what did it sound like to you? What would you give them? It could be a CD, it could be a poster, it could be a piano or a keyboard,
An instrument.
yeah, an instrument. What would you pass on to somebody to represent what you want them to know about music?
Christ.
We asked the tough stuff here.
Yeah, that's a tough question, man. That's a very broad question.
It is. Yeah, take your time.
I would give them a few records, man, like
Okay.
Exile on Main Street. Kind of Blue by Miles Davis.
Okay.
Maybe I don't know, man. That's a very broad question.
But see, we're preparing you just in case. You need to hand this down at some point. And then with the apocalypse almost coming down last year with all that nonsense. People, what was the last song you'd want to hear?
Yeah.
So
Right.
interesting stuff, man. But well, listen, we appreciate. We're stoked to hear both hopefully new albums this
that'd be
year.
great.
Black Diamond Heavies and James Legg. Where can everybody go to keep in touch with you? Obviously, Pavement does a lot of your PR and everything, but where are the best places that people can keep in touch with what's happening with you, the Heavies, tours, all of that stuff?
Okay, well, our record label is Alive Records.
Yep.
They're on the internet. Alive Natural Sound Records. You can find anything there. James Legg and Black Diamond Heavies. We're on Facebook. I guess everybody in the world's on Facebook these days. You kind of have to be.
Yep.
But yeah, through that and through the record label, you can keep in touch with what's going on.
Perfectly. Do it. And again, we harp on this every single week. We say, don't just listen to music, experience it. Go see these artists live. That's how they make most of their money. And especially for a guy like James Legg, a band like Black Diamond Heavies, any of these bands that he's involved in. These are the type of bands that you really need to experience live. Go out and get you some for sure. So, John, we appreciate it. Back here in a few minutes here on Across the Board with Ian the Colonel on hawkradio.org
and acrosstheboardradio.com.